So welcome everyone to the February meeting for the MAS Northeast chapter, Gene Winter chapter. Vic's here, I'm here, Dick Miller's here, John will be coming, I believe. Thank you everyone for making it on time. Oh, got a few more coming in. Vic, do we have any announcements that we need to do?
No, just that we'll have a meeting next month. I can't remember who the speaker.
It's another UMass Boston woman. That's all I know. I remember I scheduled whoever it was. And so I was trying to get everyone lined up. So yeah, you'll get more information from us about next month's speaker. At the end of February 24th, we have our digging lecture with Dr. Ryan Wheeler about publishing in archaeology. So even if you're not a professional archaeologist, if you're interested in publishing with like the MAS Bulletin and all of that, you can learn more on how to do that. Okay, so let me introduce our speaker. We are joined today, very exciting, by Julianne Danna, who went to the University of Massachusetts, Boston, for her master's in historical archaeology. She also has a BA in history and anthropology from the University of Delaware. And she supports the VCP as outreach coordinator. Julie previously served as an assistant laboratory manager in the Alexandria VCP. And her master's thesis research focused on personal adornment and the cultural diversity of Southern Delaware during the late 17th century. And she has completed fieldwork in the Mid-Atlantic, New England, Iceland, doing geophysical surveys and excavation. And before joining the VCP, she worked as a laboratory archaeologist and for the National Park Service as interpreter and museum technician. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Oh, and at the end of this, you guys can ask questions, but unlike normal, you're gonna send them to Vic and not to me because I will be on, but I'm with my nephews and have other stuff. So no one needs that going on. So, Jeff in.
All right.
With that, Julie, I think you can share your screen.
Okay, let me get that rolling. Oop, just back that up then. Not cooperating. All right. Thank you, Lindsay, for inviting me to speak today. I'm really excited to tell you about the VCP. It's a really unique, interesting program that is really one of a kind in this country right now. So Lindsay covered a lot of my bases as to who I am. I'm the outreach coordinator for the VCP. I did previously serve as an assistant lab manager at the VCP in Alexandria. And then one of the things that wasn't in my bio is I'm also a military spouse. So I really understand both sides of what the VCP works on right now. I can understand the archaeology and cultural resource side of things, as well as the military aspect. And I kind of can speak the same language as a lot of the vets coming in who aren't quite sure how to speak to civilians after X amount of years in the military. I'm happy to take questions after I finish up my slides. Should have plenty of time. It's not too long of a presentation. So a quick overview. I'm going to first speak about the general archaeology and curation in the Army Corps of Engineers, who we work for, and then going into the specifics of the Veterans Curation Program, the artifacts, archives, and photography. And then after that, I'll take some questions. So the VCP is directly under the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, I'll refer to it as USACE. And the Army Corps roughly maintains about 10% of federal land, which is a huge amount of property. You can see the districts here on the map that I have on the screen here. And USACE has a very vast mission. They do navigation, they do flood risk management, recreation, environmental stewardship, and they support basically anytime someone puts a shovel in the ground in any of the other branches as well. So even if the Navy is going to build something new on base, USACE is there to evaluate it as well. So the VCP is a program that is under USACE created and then is bid out to contractors. So currently I work for New South Associates, and yeah, I think that about covers it. So within USACE is the mandatory center of expertise for the curation and management of archaeological collections. Quite the handful, quite the mouthful there. I'm going to refer to that as the MCX CMAC, which is the
we're processing archaeological and archival collections, sort of bring them back up to today's standards. And through that, we're teaching transferable skills to the veterans.
My name is Kara Wheeler. I was in the Army from 2001 until 2005. I was stationed with the 1st Infantry Division out of Würzburg, Germany.
My name is Jonathan Thibodeau. I was in the Army, and I was in 88 Hotel in the Transportation and Logistics branch, and I got out as an E4 corporal.
Allison Mulligan. I was in the United States Navy, stationed in Naval Base San Diego. Was on 2 ships. My rate in the Navy was a boatswain's mate.
When I left in 2005, it was very sudden.
My experience in transitioning out of the military was daunting.
We had just gotten back from Iraq, and I left in July. My husband was still in the Army, so I got out while I was still in Germany. So I never came back to the United States at that point.
When we all got out, there wasn't a whole lot of programs like the VCP or other programs that are in fact today that were back then when I was getting out. So it was a pretty turbulent time trying to re-assimilate into the job market.
Leaving in another country is a little bit different because you don't have all the job options that you want while you're there. You have the education center, but you're kind of still floundering a little bit of what you want to do.
Oh my gosh, what did I do once I got out? I think I took a 2-month beach vacation and just became a total beach bum.
I had just finished completing my associate's degree. It was general education, the focus in U.S. history. I didn't know what to do with that. And I have a friend that suggested volunteer, get some experience and see what's out there, the best way to find what you like to do. And we lived close to Mount Vernon. And so I started volunteering there and I saw the post for the VCP.
I heard about the VCP through the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, and they had spread it out at all the meetings that there was this program for veterans, and it sounded very interesting.
To me, one of the best parts of the VCP is the community that is built within the facilities. We have individuals in each session from all the branches that kind of come together and sort of start developing these friendships and sort of this camaraderie that is built. And it's a really nice thing to see, especially when some individuals can oftentimes feel alone during their transition out of the military. So bringing them in and having that sort of really strong sense of community is one of the best things that we hear about the program. And it's one of the best things that we, as managers, we see in the program. And it's just the best part of the program to me, that it sort of allows individuals for this 5-month time frame to have this sort of higher sense of purpose in their community, working on these collections, working on their transition. It's really just sort of a win-win.
So my first overall impression of the VCP was amazing. I was taken aback how there's an organization that actually cares for veterans and enables them to do what it is that they did best, which is taking care of business, on all different levels, but being able to get external help as well. When you all bring people in from outside of the program, it really reinforces a sense of stewardship and community, because once you're out of the military, that kind of goes by the wayside. So this program has really done a great job of onboarding veterans back into the workforce.
The meeting of people was just like the military. Everyone is from everywhere, different backgrounds, different services. The technicians, I feel like, became close rather quickly, to the point that, you're teasing each other back and forth like you would have had you been in the military. In that aspect, it was great because you kind of felt like you had a team again, like you did in the military, where people will help you out and you had those connections again.
It was cool because I think all of us come in there and there's like an unspoken kind of work ethic that we all have. Like we all know, hey, if you're assigned to this, you can do this and this and this.
I was just very excited to get together with a group of people who we all shared a common bond of wanting to get stuff done.
All right. Okay, can you guys hear me again?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Let me get back to the PowerPoint here. So that's a little brief snippet of one of the presentations that we did, which is a really great presentation. And it's available on our Facebook page as well. shows you a little bit about how much the VCP means to the veterans that come through our facilities. So as Jasmine mentioned, our lab locations are spread out across the country. We try to focus in areas where we do find that there's a large veterans population, areas where there's a facility for veterans getting out due to medical issues. So obviously in the DC area, there's quite a lot of large bases, and some of them are designated as places where there are medical retirees are coming through. So we have our four flagship labs and our 3 satellite facilities. The flagship labs are directly operated under USACE. All of them are USACE facilities. And then the flagship labs are in residence at universities. And our facilities vary in size as well as how many veterans we can accommodate in each facility, anywhere from 3 to 18. Alexandria is our biggest one with usually 18 vets, although with COVID last year, all things went out the window, and we had a much smaller class that is just graduating now. So they've been there a little bit longer than normal. Usually we have about a 5-month session. Let me get this. How can I get this? There we go. So here's our Alexandria facility. A little bit about each of our facilities. All of them have secured collections, storage space, extra separate locked NAGPRA space. All of them are ADA accessible. And important to us was to have a lot of light as well as an open space, creating a really safe environment for the veterans who are coming in. We really need to make sure that our space is welcoming and comfortable for these vets. A lot of them are dealing with trauma, with PTSD. Some of them are experiencing homelessness, and a lot of other issues that they're bringing to the table here too. So we have a lot of space in almost all of our facilities. We make sure everybody has their own space to kind of be comfortable in. So you can see here, we have a couple technicians recently with the masks in the top left and top right. So the veteran on the top left is working with our archives. Top right is working with some artifacts. You can see she's got a guide down on the lower right there and is sorting them and weighing these artifacts. We have a visit from the senator on the bottom corner, as well as on the bottom right is our manager, Erin, showing around showing her a visitor through some of the facilities. So our techs receive training with both artifacts and archives. So this is an example of the artifacts rehabilitation that we do, bringing things from before to the after at the bottom. Before, they're in non-archival containers, they're overpacked. I mean, these boxes weigh 50 pounds or so, can weigh 50 pounds. A lot of them have water or compression damage from sitting somewhere for so long with other items stacked on top. We don't know what's in a lot of these boxes. I mean, we might have a general idea, but we don't necessarily know. Sometimes we find an extra site in the box. Nobody knows what's in a lot of these boxes. And a lot of them are improperly stored too. You can see in the top left, we've got Tupperware containers, we've got all sorts of stuff. So once we get an investigation in, the techs will document everything that's on the box as well as everything that's in the box before really digging in. We pull things out one by one, rebag it, clean it, identify it. We don't clean with like soap and water or anything. We brush the dirt off. We make sure they're clean artifacts. Usually they are. Identify it. We separate by material class, and then we put it. Eventually, it goes back in a new box with foil-backed adhesive labels, archival paper tags in the bags, new fresh bags for almost everything as well, and as well as all of its context information, whatever we have. Once we get through the bagging, rebagging, we'll enter it all into Microsoft Excel and take pictures of some of the artifacts individually. And as you can see, everything comes in all sorts of states. We've had foil, old soda bottles, film canisters. We've also really seen some of the most beautiful artifacts I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, I've been on a variety of different sites, but these artifacts, I mean, were just gorgeous. My favorite was a 3-sided drill, a lithic drill that was in the shape of a pyramid, and the flint napping on it was just absolutely amazing. It had 3 strikes down 3 strikes down the whole thing, 1 on each side, to create this beautiful artifact. And it was the workmanship on it was just amazing. We've had everything from worked bottle glass to absolutely stunning Native American ceramics with gorgeous imprinted patterns in it, as well as things like actual shackles from probably a slave site. So every single thing gets identified, classified, regrouped. We don't interpret any of this information. That's not our job in this facility, but we do make instead everything accessible, cataloged, clean, ready for someone else to find and interpret it. And then, like I said, we create Excel or Access catalogs for everything, so that the data is in common programs that are able to be accessed by just about anybody who needs it. And investigations, our collections can take anywhere from months or years to complete based on the size. I think one of the main ones, 2015. So some of them are absolutely enormous. So in addition to the artifacts, we also deal with all of the records that come with an archaeology site. We do all of the rehabilitation. Before they often come in again, non-archival containers. The maps are crushed and rolled up and folded and shoved into the box somehow. It's all unorganized. Nobody knows what's actually there. There's a lot of old paper clips that are now rusting onto the pages, old tape that's peeling off and creating this residue. And afterwards, there'll be in archival containers. Everything's going to be mended, flattened, archivally, of course, organized, got proper labeling. And then we scan everything that comes through our facility as far as the archival records. So there is a digital copy of them as well at this point. And we create the database again and the finding aid so that people can figure out what is actually in these boxes. And you can see on the bottom right there, the final product, lots of nice organized manila folders and labeled with everything that is actually in those folders. So a researcher can go through and actually find what they need. So as far as the collections that we get in, all of them are from USACE. You can see it you can see the wide variety of stuff that we get in here. We've had CDs and all sorts of stuff. And a lot of these collections haven't been opened in 80 some years. I've had a few that were dug in the 40s or the 60s and were put away at that point and haven't been touched since then. So they're really not in great shape anymore. And obviously our standards back then were not the same standards that we have today, not the same technology. So we're really bringing these up to standard, but we're also trying to get into the minds of the people who curated these collections in the first place to make sure we have all of the data correct and really reorganize them in a way that makes logical sense for future researchers. We get some really weird stuff in the collection sometimes. We actually had to order a floppy disk drive to be able to read some of the floppy disks. Our current computers, we have laptops, they didn't have them. And we get some strange notes. You can see on the right, it says, "What is reality here?" I really think that some of those days when you were out there in 100 degrees and that you're a field tech digging endless amounts of holes, maybe the sun gets to you a little bit. One of my favorite notes that was on some of our archival material was in the field forms, and it was a checkbox, and it said, "Is this a real site? Yes or no?" So there really are some treasures going throughout these, but it's really interesting the stuff that we were able to see in this facility. And obviously we're going to, do the best we can to bring it to light for everyone to see. So we are rehousing to have better long-term storage. We're going to create specific solutions for whatever we need to within these collections. And if we have something particularly fragile, or sometimes we'll have items that have been mended before and are very breakable and in a kind of a weird shape now that they've been mended, we'll create specialty boxes for them so that we ensure that they don't get broken in storage after this. So you can see in the top left-hand corner, a box of dirty bottles that probably somebody picked up when they were walking on walking the surface sometime. And we are creating these specialty housings for them so that they are not going to get broken in the future, hopefully.
making sure that all the dirt is away from any of the exterior boxings and exterior housings. And I'll talk a little bit more about it in a little bit later slide, but you can see in the bottom left are an example of our photography that we do, which is really clear and really nice, so that everybody, you can really get an idea of what the artifact looks like. Occasionally, sometimes we're doing these collections and then they will get put on display later. So it's really nice, especially for some facilities, they don't know what's in these boxes. So now they can say, hey, I have an exhibit on the Civil War coming up. I need these number of Civil War artifacts. And they're able to go to those boxes then and say, okay, I have these things. This one's particularly cool. I have a photograph of it from the VCP's collections, and we can pull that out and put it on display at that point. So the bottom is an example from a museum in Alexandria, not our collections, but just an example of one of the exhibits that can come from our work. We really do get a huge variety of stuff. This is all from one house. It's called the Jenkins house site. It's a Civil War era plantation in West Virginia on the USA's property, Robert C. Byrd Locks. Overlooks the Ohio River. House was built in 1835 by Captain William Jenkins. There's 80,000 artifacts associated with this one site and 2 linear feet of archives. Again, that's everything upright. So that's a lot of material still. Lots of our sites have historic and prehistoric components to them. So you can see in the top left, a really beautiful lithic, probably drill, as well as the flip side of a coin there that has been punched. It's 2 sides of the same coin. In the middle row, you have probably a bone handle to a utensil, as well as 2 shots of a really, really nice tobacco pipe there decorated. Bottom is the top of a wine bottle and a toothbrush in the middle and a stopper of some sort. So really true wide variety of stuff on most of these sites, on some of these sites, I should say, and really interesting stuff. Really helps the veterans to get involved when they recognize some of the stuff, but also, it is interesting things coming through. So I briefly mentioned our photography during the artifacts portion there. It's often the favorite task of our veterans. We have a forensic photographer. He's a retired police photographer that trains our veterans, and they create these very measured, exact, clean, impeccable images that you can see here. And we take a portion of photographs, depending on, we take a representative portion of the artifacts that we have associated with each site. So it's not all of them. It would take us forever to take pictures of all of them. And to be honest, not all of them are going to show something important about the site either. Everything's important, but we want to make sure that we're taking pictures of the artifacts that are truly valuable and truly important to the interpretation of this site. So you can see the excerpt of our catalog, which has the VCP ID in the box there, 002082. And that's going to be its identifier in our catalog, as well as its identifier in the files as well. So we can go and say, this is artifact 002082, and know that that's the exact same one that I'm looking at here. So it's a great organization system for this. And we'll do X number of shots. You can see here that some of them have several different views of each shot to make sure that we're truly accurately representing the artifact that we're showing. So why vets? Why are these archaeology collections used to train vets? There's lots of other people looking for jobs. Why vets? Well, these vets are acquiring a lot of great skills: computer database management, NEC records management, photographic and scanning technologies, computer software proficiency, processing and organization of collections, knowledge of history and archaeology, as well as increased interpersonal communication skills. We aren't doing anything that is super advanced here. We're identifying these artifacts, we're bringing them up to current curation standards, we're making sure they're in clean housing, and we're not in it to create these wonderful new reports of revolutionary archaeology data. We're teaching them to do very, very basic artifact identification and organization. We're not teaching the difference between pearlware and whiteware. Everyone completes 2 weeks of training, and we ensure that they're comfortable with identifications before we kind of let them dig into a box for their own. The managers review everything through a quality control process, and then what they get out of it are a whole wide variety of skills that they probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I've actually had to teach Microsoft Word a few times to some of these vets, even though a lot of them are a lot younger. They didn't get it in high school, depending on where they were from. We teach Microsoft Excel and a lot of the how to manipulate the data on Excel a lot. Sometimes we have to have a talk about proper office etiquette and what you can and cannot say to your coworkers, which, to be honest, is not as obvious to everyone as you would think, and definitely not the same as in the military. So we're trying to get them prepared to go on to a civilian career of some sort, and it's a different culture. So we're trying to get them acclimated to what's coming next for them. We're teaching them to do their time card, that they need to be back from their breaks on time, to work individually and as a team. We focus on hiring post 9/11 veterans and lower enlisted. That's who we find benefits the most from the program. We're looking for people who are trying to get back into the job market, who kind of just got out of the military. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. So there's a lot of benefits to these participants, as I was just kind of mentioning briefly. They're getting 5 months of temporary employment and financial stability. We pay them a pretty good rate, if you ask me. They get a new skill set, a support system, as you saw a little bit in the video, being around these other veterans, even though they're not from the same branches, but a lot of them more recently were transitioned from the military. They're finding people that that understand them. They're not quite as alone in the civilian world now. We do a lot of work with resume building, cover letters, interview skills, job searches, education placement, and flexible scheduling. And one of the huge things that we're providing is stability. A lot of these veterans got out of the military relatively quickly due to injuries, and they were planning on doing this the rest of their lives. They were going to do it 20 years, earn their retirement, do whatever they wanted after that, had a paycheck coming in, no big deal. And either they got hurt or something happened and they're not able to do this anymore. And so they're kind of at a loss as to what comes next. A lot of them don't have a resume when they come into our facility. So we help them with that. That's one of my main tasks. Most aren't sure what they should do next, or what they want to do, or how to find out either of those. Most don't know. They always thought they'd be in the military, or they got in the military right out of high school. And it's kind of like, okay, now I'm free. Now what? Nobody's telling me what to do anymore. Nobody's giving me directions. I need to decide things for myself. And a lot of them aren't sure where to start in today's day and age, especially with COVID right now. So our program is 5 months. They have that time to get their feet back under them and at least get on the right track in whatever direction they want to go. We do full and part-time work, so we are flexible, but we encourage the consistency in regular hours. And some vets need to just decompress after whatever job they were working. Weighing seemingly endless amounts of tiny bone fragments or tiny pieces of rock or ceramic or whatever it is, sometimes just gives them a moment to focus on a small task and accomplish that, and gives them kind of a moment to breathe and to think about things a little bit more. Sometimes we get veterans who just came out of a very high intensity job, like military police, or we had a couple of veterans come out of mortuary affairs. That was very stressful for them. And some veterans who had lower key jobs, who maybe worked in an office on a regular basis. Everyone comes in needing something out of the program, but with the individualized attention that we're able to provide, with the smaller classes that we have, we're able to work one-on-one with them and really help them figure out what they want to get out of the program, and ensure they do get that. Everyone works with us to create a professional resume. That's one of our products of the program, is that you walk away with a professional resume that you're happy with. We don't dictate to everyone what they should have on their resume. We kind of just guide them in making a resume for themselves. And we do a lot of one-on-one work to figure out how to apply to a job or school, how to do an Indeed search for a job, how to use LinkedIn effectively, how to write a cover letter or a personal statement. And we're working with them to do all these things. We're not doing them for them. We're making sure that they're getting these skills to do it for themselves next round. So as a result of this, we've been able to digitize and rehabilitate a huge amount of collections. Over 44,000 photographs and scans have been created. A lot of these digital files are uploaded to the Digital Archaeological Record, also known as TDAR, and anybody can access TDAR. You have to request to be approved for access, but it's available for researchers, educators, tribal members, the public, and you can get on there and see photographs of our collections, as well as the catalogs and what's available in a lot of these collections. And we are assisting with the transition to civilian life for these veterans. There's a lot of good material that we're providing that they're going to be able to use at whatever their next job is. We are, we've had people do a huge variety of jobs. The vast majority do not go into archaeology after this because we're not providing enough training for that. You have to kind of already be on that track, be volunteering, be working in the field, not necessarily working in the field, but be going to school in the field already if they do want to go into archaeology. So most of them, I would say at least 90% of them are not interested in making this a career. Digitization is one of the huge things that we teach that is really helpful as everything is going, medical records and everything's going to digital these days. There's a huge demand for that as well. And then we have a lot of veterans that we've been able to help in these past 10, 11 years at this point, 12 years. 665 veterans have participated and 24 are currently participating. And 91% have obtained employment or continued their education upon the completion of the program. That's pretty awesome. 400 collections are being or have been rehabilitated to federal standards. So we're getting a lot done here. We're getting a lot of collections done, and we're getting a lot of veterans who are happy with where they are next. Most of our collections, like I said, have thousands and thousands of artifacts, hundreds of archival assets. So this would be a huge undertaking for a normal curation crew, just a 1 or 2 person lab. This would take them forever. So it's great that we have the staff and the funding to be able to do this. So where do they end up next? You can see some pictures of our graduates and in the jobs that they're doing now. We've had dental hygienists, we've had farmers, we've had IT professionals, professional athletes, entrepreneurs, several of them who have started their own businesses, which is awesome. And I really feel like a proud mother hen to some of these techs. And we keep in touch with a lot of them. I think a lot of the staff feels the same way. We've helped them achieve their goals. We're encouraging them and supporting them the whole way. It's 100% them, but we're there to help them get there, which is awesome. And a lot of them check back in with us, let us know how they're doing. The lady in the hat there in the garden, who's one of our farming veterans, is working at a nonprofit that feeds vets and families in the DC area. So she's on a nonprofit farm that's feeding people who are food insecure, which is really cool. And we're really doing a lot of good work curating these artifacts and archives and moving them into a safer space, as well as working with these vets to help them figure out what comes next after the military. So that's the most of my presentation. I really encourage you to check out our website, our Facebook, which has a lot of really cool content on it, as well as our Instagram. We've really made a step up to be modern here with the Instagram, and there's really cool content on it that is beyond me, but some our staff and techs are really talented, and they have some really neat things on the Instagram there. So I encourage you to check those out more, and feel free to reach out if you have any more questions about the program. I think we can take some questions now.
All right. Folks, we usually use the chat function for questions. I'm going to start with the typical question Lindsay would ask, which is, how did you get interested in just becoming an archaeologist?
I am one of those people that has a very specific point of when I became an archaeologist. We were on a family vacation to Williamsburg, and I went to historic Jamestown, and they were excavating the palisade wall there. And that was the point. I think I was like 14 or 15. That was it. I knew at that point I would become an archaeologist. So that track kind of led me through University of Delaware, which was wonderful. I studied under Dr. Julianne there, who was amazing. And she encouraged me to go to grad school after that. And I ended up at UMass Boston, where I had wonderful advisors and who really encouraged me as well. So that's how I ended up in archaeology. And then it took a little bit of ways for me to find the VCP, but it's a really cool program too.
If anyone's interested in giving a question, just raise your hand or send me a chat, and I'll actually unmute you so you can actually ask your questions. We're only a few of us on tonight. So anyone interested, just send me a chat or raise your hand on the screen if you're visual. Well, I have another question. Have you seen, I know we mentioned before when we were chatting before the lecture started that, Alexandria is the closest. Do you think that there's a way of getting Army Corps to try to open up a regional program in the New England region? I mean, it's a fairly robust area. There's a lot of vets.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope so. I think it's a matter of how much we can support. So we're directly funded through Congress. We're in the congressional budget. So it's a matter of how much we can, how much setup there is to staff a new lab. San Mateo is our newest flagship lab, and it's a very small one. There's only a couple of vets in there. I think they had 3 again this term. So it does cost a good amount of money to get it up and running, which is where the satellite facilities come in, which is a partnership with the university. So I always say, hey, why not UMass? Get some of these collections done, but it's really up to the individual, the Army Corps' heads in each region as to who is starting in each district. Within each region, there's a bunch of districts, and who is willing to, which heads of the district are willing to work with us and provide us collections and everything as well. So I hope there's coming to the Northeast soon.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess it's really what Army Corps with their collections. Do you think any other branches might be interested in sort of adopting this if there was support for them to get funding to do so?
I would hope so. I to be honest, I don't know. I know since the Army Corps is mainly the one that holds a lot of these collections, I don't know what what the other branches have to work with. Since the Army Corps is kind of the one that a lot of the other branches go to deal with these collections, so I don't really know. I don't really know what the other ones do, but there's always there's a lot of work being done with the new National Museum of the U.S. Army down at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. There's a lot of work being done there. And so hopefully there's more to be done with the collections, as well as more opportunities for the veterans too.
All right. Any questions out there in the audience? All right, Neil, I'm gonna unmute you. Just give me a second. I don't know if I can get to that spot.
Okay, I'm an Army Corps project veteran, although all the collections I accumulated ended up at institutions. Are you getting collections from institutions that did not have good curation, or are you just getting the stuff that came directly to the Corps?
It really depends, and each facility has a lot of collections in each facility that we're working on. So we're getting in collections that have been at other, for example, other CRM firms that have been hosting them and holding them for us. The Corps is making an effort to regionalize and centralize all of their collections. So within each district, there should be one main curational facility, or hopefully they're going to get it all to one spot at some point. So they're kind of pulling in these collections from all of the other places that they are right now to kind of live at the Corps again. And I mean, the collections, it really depends. Some of the collections we get from actual Corps facilities that are in rough shape, and some of them are from individual companies and other institutions as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I've actually allowed anyone to unmute themselves if they want to ask a question. So you can just go in and unmute yourself and ask. I know I have a couple of vets on this call as well. Some are hidden. We've actually tried to do some programming here but not to the extent that you're talking about, trying to get training. So your sort of implication really is for us to look for a university partner to approach core then. Would be
I think that would probably be a good, potentially. I'm not sure. I'm to be honest, I am not that high up
right, it's
as far as these organizations, but from what I hear, they're, I'm sure they would love to have more flagship facilities, but like they said, the cost of the startup is a lot. So it seems that most of what they're trending toward these days is the facilities. There's one at University of Washington and University of Arkansas, as well as one of the Texas facilities, one of the Texas universities as well. So I believe it's Texas State. So those have been the newest ones for sure.
Are there other questions here, or can we release Julianne to her family?
It's a weird program. There's it's a lot of it's very different.
Well, really appreciate you giving us this overview of the program. It was much different than I expected in terms of what the program actually could do, and it's much more in depth than I thought it would be, which is great. And especially since you're not sort of saying, okay, we're going to train you to be an archaeologist or museum person. It's just skill building, which is sometimes what people don't realize. I think when we teach, that it's not strictly our field that we're teaching about, but rather skills that you could take and apply elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, especially for an archaeologist, the attention to detail, or for someone who's in the archaeology field, the attention to detail, the being patient and having to weigh all of these things to really understand where and put together in their head where this context is from. And that's actually one of the things that's hardest, I think, for the vets to adapt to for the archaeology, is that context is everything, as we know. And why does it matter what these random initials are on this box? It definitely matters. They put them on there for a reason. So I think a lot of it is the military, I think especially, has such a negative reputation of being less about the brains and more about the brute strength and those kinds of things, which I think is dramatically changed these days for sure. But this really helps enforce that it's not about that all the time, and to really hone those skills a little bit more so that they're ready to take on whatever career field comes next for them.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we will release you, and
okay.
We'll be in touch again. This is really intriguing to me. I hope your website talks a lot more about what the details, and Neil's giving you a thumbs up.
I'm glad, yeah.
I see some smiles on the other end, so I think it's really good. So Julianne, thank you very much, and be well, be safe, and
thank you.
Thank
you
you
too.
again.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.